Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I'm talking about Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. I liked the original Mario plus Rabbids enough to give this sequel a try, plus I was given it as a gift, so might as well. In this one, you need to rescue Rosalina from an evil entity called Cursa. As you can tell, the theme of this game is very much space, exploration, stars, Lumas, that kind of thing. It takes a lot of inspiration from Super Mario Galaxy. In this game, the Lumas were fused with Rabbids and are now called Sparks. If you aren't familiar with the series in general, the Rabbids are minion-esque little characters that are pretty wacky and silly, but they can get a little serious as well when needed. Specifically, I'm thinking of one of the main characters that is introduced in this game, a Rabbid called Edge, who, as you could assume, is pretty edgy. But there are certain Rabbids that take a lot of inspiration costume-wise as their Mario counterparts. So you can play as Mario, but you can also play as Rabbid Mario. You can play as Luigi or Rabbid Luigi. And while their outfits may be pretty similar, they play actually pretty different. For instance, one of the characters that I would often use is Rabbid Mario, and he was very much a close-ranged melee character compared to Mario, who has two laser pistols and is very acrobatic in being able to like leap on his teammates and jump up into the air and fire off his pistols in the air. So they play differently even though they have the same outfits. I can't remember in the first game if these Rabbid characters that you can use can talk or if they just speak gibberish like a minion would. But in this game, they definitely talk, and their voices are maybe a little annoying, but they do actually have like dialogue and spoken word as well. I also don't remember your little robot companion named Beepo. I can't remember in the first one if he's voice acted or not, but in this one he is voice acted, and he has created also this like AI computer character as well who also talks. And while I may sound like I'm a little annoyed or grated by these characters, especially the Rabbids, I actually didn't mind the Rabbids that much. And the cinematics that are taking place in this game actually are kind of entertaining and silly in a way without being like too annoying. You are able to unlock additional little fun cinematics as well, and they're just a fun little distraction. I wouldn't say I'm exactly like super entertained by them, but they're not bad. Combat is like a very open-ended tactic game. So think of a game like Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy Tactics, where you're on a grid-based system. Your character can move X amount of squares away, can attack with a range of a set amount of distance, and then your turn is done. So you'll move and then attack. That's not really the case in this game. For one of the biggest changes in this game compared to like a normal tactics game is your characters. You can switch between your characters anytime they want. Even if you've already moved, even if you've already attacked, you can still switch to the character, and you can do a lot of movement in terms of, instead of like a grid-based system where you can only move X amount of squares, in this game you almost have like a radius, like a big old radius around your character, and you can just freely move around this radius, and the enemies and your other team members will wait their turn until you're ready to give the turn to them. But you can do several different things. So as you're moving around in this big radius, you can slide into enemies, and then depending on how you upgrade your character, you can do this multiple times. You can also bounce off your teammates, like I referenced earlier with Mario, to give yourself even more movement options, and different characters have different effects based on these slides or these propelling off of other teammates. For instance, when Bowser lands, he creates this like shockwave that damages enemies, so you'll want to jump off of a teammate and land next to an enemy, and then you'll do damage to them. Other characters who are more like support type characters like Peach is going to give a shield to any team members that she jumps off. And Rabbid Peach, it would heal them. So that's in terms of like movement, what you can do. The thing about this game is once you fire your basic weapon, you cannot move anymore. So you want to make sure that if you are planning on firing off your weapon, to do that very last and when you are under cover, because there's two different forms of cover. There's partial cover and there's complete cover. And complete cover means that the enemy cannot hit you. They have a 0% chance of hitting. Partial cover means they have a 50% chance of hitting. In addition to your movement, you basically have two actions that you can perform. So slides, jumping off teammates, moving around, that doesn't count as an action, but firing off your main weapon does. And each character has their own like little special ability that they have. And so, for instance, one of the characters that I really liked was Luigi. And Luigi is basically like a sniper in this game with a bow and arrow. And his special ability is sharpshooter, where anytime an enemy moves within his radius, he will automatically fire at it, and there's like a 100% chance of hitting the enemy, and it does a ton of damage, depending on like how far away he is. Rabbid Mario, on the other hand, has like a counterattack, so he sets himself up, and it's almost like he's trying to get hit, and then he shoots a blast back at the person who attacked. In addition to these special abilities, you can also choose to use a spark, and I referenced sparks a little earlier. They're the combination of Lumas and Rabbids, and you can, as you play through the game, you can unlock these sparks that have different abilities, both an active ability and a passive ability. And you can actually upgrade these sparks as well by feeding them star bits, just like you would in Super Mario Galaxy. And these sparks have various abilities. Some superpower your slides or your basic attacks with like a element, and certain enemies are more susceptible to elements than others. There's one that just within a radius around you just shoots a bunch of comets or lightning bolts or just some kind of damaging effect around you. One of my favorite sparks that I use all the time with Rabbid Mario is it would like attract all of the enemies within a big old radius around the character who uses it, and basically makes them like walk towards your enemy. So this was very beneficial for Rabbid Mario because he brings all of these enemies up close to them, and then he can punch in a big old cone and do a ton of damage all at once. And so it's very smart to be investing and upgrading these sparks, and some of them are optional, some of them you unlock naturally through the story. And I guess this brings me to the like actual content of the game when you're outside of combat. When you're outside of combat, you can just like free range, walk around, collect coins and items, do some shopping, but there's also in each world, there's a bunch of like optional content that you can do in order to either unlock sparks or unlock planet coins. And planet coins can purchase like alternative skins for your weapons or the cinematics, like these bonus cinematics. They can also provide this special resource to automatically upgrade your sparks if you don't have enough star bits, or you can purchase a key in order to unlock like an exclusive secret level, which usually provides a pretty good spark. It's probably in your best interest to do a lot of this side content as well as you gain XP from it. This game does have RPG elements. Each character has their own unique skill tree, albeit the skill trees themselves are fairly simplified, and I feel like the upgrades usually aren't that exciting. But it is still necessary because they do power up your abilities, and leveling up does give your character stat increases. The really cool thing about this game that I liked is that all of your characters are on an equal level. So it's not like you kind of get shoehorned into using only your 3 favorite characters, because you can only use 3 at a time. Instead, you're free to always switch in and out your party as you see fit, because all of your characters are the same level, no matter how long ago it was since they last saw combat. So it was nice being able to switch in and out, try out a bunch of different party members and party combinations. Usually what I favored was using Luigi, Rabbid Mario, and Edge, the new character that is introduced in this game. That's not to say that I wouldn't try and experiment different characters, and certain parts of the story do allow you to use 4 people at once, but for the most part I found that setup worked best for me. I like going to all of the different planets. I think there's 5 or 6 planets total, and the first couple planets are all themed around the seasons. So first you're going to go to like a very beach-themed planet that is all about like summer vibes, and then you'll go to fall, and then you'll go to the winter area, then the spring. And each of these planets is basically in the care of like a warden, which is a really silly Rabbid character, but they all have their own unique personalities. And the idea of these planets is every time you go to a planet, it's infected by this like black goo tentacle kind of stuff that was obviously inflicted by Cursa. So first you need to like repair the planet, which then reveals a bunch of additional side content for you to do. And then once you beat the final boss of the planet, then you're free to navigate to the next one. I have to admit though, this game did start feeling quite repetitive, and it wasn't a game that I could play a lot of in one sitting, because the combat itself, while it is free and open and fluid, you have a ton of these different options, it did start feeling repetitive after the third or fourth battle, and then I would need to go take a break or something. And I just wish that there was something to kind of mix it up. And I feel like the way that I would have gone about mixing it up more is taking more of the route of the first Mario and Rabbids games by giving you a lot of new characters that are constantly introduced. Because in this game, you are given the majority of the characters that you can use pretty much at the beginning of the game, and then you unlock maybe 2 or 3 additional characters throughout the story, compared to the first Mario and Rabbids game where you just start out with those 2 or 3 characters, and then as the story progresses, you're slowly getting more and more. Maybe that's just me though. I just wish that there was something else to kind of mix things up. Maybe I would have been more invested if the skill trees for the characters were a little more varied and interesting. Or maybe I needed a wider variety of enemies to be fighting against, because by the end of the game, there were a different variety of enemies, but a lot of them were just like reed skins of certain enemy types. I do kind of wish that there was an auto win option when you're not doing any of the additional missions, but you're just wandering around the world and you're defeating various enemies that are just walking around randomly. Only if you were like a higher level than the enemy, maybe you could just like auto defeat them, because the battles themselves, even if it's just like a smaller battle, it's still going to take about 2 or 3 minutes at minimum to do just one battle. And so I just wish I could get back to like exploring the world and doing these puzzles instead of doing menial battles that don't provide much of a challenge for me. The puzzles themselves are pretty clever. I enjoyed doing them. You unlock like additional powers for Beepo, like to reveal invisible things, or to use like a sonic blast to destroy walls or activate moving blocks. There was one obstacle that I saw at the very beginning of the planet, and I would consistently see throughout the game, that I couldn't really figure out how to interact with. And it's basically like a mound on the ground, and no matter what I did with Beepo, I couldn't like activate these mounds on the ground. So if you know what those mounds on the ground are for, please let me know. It is the type of game where you can't like 100% beat a planet at the very beginning when you first go there. You may need to backtrack to previous planets as you unlock more abilities for Beepo. And I'm sure there's great rewards for when you do so. However, by the end of the game, I did not 100% complete this, but I was the level cap for this game, which is level 30. And so I feel like I did a decent amount of optional content, but just not all of it. Sometimes in this optional content, it will like kind of shoehorn you into using a specific 2 characters. Like, okay, for this battle, you're only allowed to use Rabbid, Luigi, and Bowser. And so that is kind of nice because it kind of forces you to go out of your comfort zone and try out different characters and realize why you don't use those characters in your main game. Overall, I think it's a good game, and I did have a fun time playing it despite its repetitive combat. I think I'm going to give this game a 3 out of 5, but it's a high 3. Well guys, that's it for me. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye!